A single finger bone, no bigger than a fingernail, was pulled out of a cave in Siberia, and it belonged to a species of ancient humans that nobody knew existed. On an island in Indonesia, a skeleton was found of a full-grown adult woman who stood 3.5 feet tall. Beneath 180 feet of water in the North Sea, there is a drowned country where ancient humans hunted, raised families, and buried their dead for thousands of years. And in a cave in France, more than 1,000 feet from the entrance, in total darkness, someone built circular structures out of broken stalagmites 176,000 years ago, long before our species arrived in Europe. Tonight we are covering 12 discoveries that changed what science thought it knew about ancient humans. We are going from Siberia to Indonesia, from the caves of South Africa to the drowned floor of the North Sea, from a hillside in Morocco to a dry lake bed in New Mexico. Some of these finds pushed our story back by 100,000 years. Some of them added species to the human family that nobody had predicted. And the last one on this list is not about ancient humans who died out at all. It is about what they left behind, in the bodies of people alive right now. The story of ancient humans has been rewritten more in the last 25 years than in the entire century before it. So get comfortable, settle in, and let's get into it. Why this works. 4 concrete images instead of a topic list. Bone, skeleton, drowned country, structures in the dark. No block is resolved. The geographic sweep promises variety, so a viewer indifferent to Siberia stays for Indonesia. The line about the final block plants a 2-hour retention anchor in the first 90 seconds. The 12 blocks. Every block runs the same 4 beats. Do not vary the order. The predictability is what makes a 2-hour session comfortable for a 50-plus audience. Beat 1, the find. Place, date, names, institution. Concrete and specific. Beat 2, who they were. Wider context. The world these ancient humans lived in. Beat 3, the reversal. What everyone assumed versus what this proved. This is the retention engine. Beat 4, what is still unknown. Open questions. Ongoing work. Honest limits. Close 1, emotional reframing line. Never end on the data. Block 1, the finger bone that became a species. Denisova Cave, Siberia. Find, a fragment of a child's finger bone, 2008, Altai Mountains, sequenced by the Max Planck Institute, 2010. Context, the cave was occupied on and off for hundreds of thousands of years. Reversal, everyone expected Neanderthal or modern human. The DNA came back as neither. An entire population of ancient humans was identified from a bone fragment, with no complete skeleton to this day. Unknown. We still barely know what Denisovans looked like. Close angle. For the first time in history, a human species was discovered by reading it, rather than by finding it. Block 2. The Island of the Small People. Liang Bua, Flores, Indonesia. Find, 2003. A skeleton of an adult female, roughly 3 feet 6 inches, brain the size of a chimpanzee's. Homo floresiensis. Context, Island dwarfism, isolation, and the Flores tool-making record. Reversal. Small brain was assumed to mean incapable. The stone tools and evidence of fire say otherwise. Unknown. How they reached the island at all, and how long they overlapped with us. Close angle. The local Ngada and Nage people had stories about small people in the forest long before anyone dug. Block 3. The chamber at the end of the Crawl Rising Star Cave, South Africa. Find, 2013, Homo naledi, over 1,500 fossil elements in a chamber reachable only through a 7-inch gap. Context. The underground astronauts, the 6 women recruited to reach it. Reversal. Small-brained hominins were not supposed to be capable of deliberate disposal of their dead. The bodies did not get there by accident. Unknown. The dating, roughly 335,000 to 236,000 years, puts them alongside early Homo sapiens, which nobody predicted. Close angle. Something with a brain a third the size of ours may have carried its dead into the dark on purpose. Block 4. Everything moved back 100,000 years. Jebel Irhoud, Morocco. Find. 2017. Redating of remains excavated decades earlier. Approximately 315,000 years old. Context. The previous consensus placed our origin in East Africa around 200,000 years ago. Reversal. Two problems at once. The date is far older, and the location is on the wrong side of the continent. Unknown. Whether there was a single origin point at all, or a Pan-African network of populations. Close angle. We may not have a birthplace. We may have a whole continent. Block 5. The tools that should not have survived. Schoningen, Germany, and Maratusa, Greece. Find. The Schoningen spears, approximately 300,000 years, and the Maratusa wooden tool evidence, approximately 430,000 years. Context. Wood, leather, fiber, and cord almost never survive. The record we have is filtered toward stone. Reversal. These ancient humans were not opportunistic. Shaping wood for a task requires imagining the finished object before it exists. Unknown. How much of the toolkit is permanently invisible to us? Close angle. We built our picture of ancient humans out of the only material that happened to last. Block 6. The first drawing Blombos Cave, South Africa. Find. Engraved ochre, approximately 73,000 to 100,000 years. Shell beads, an ochre processing toolkit. Context. Cross-hatched lines drawn deliberately, repeatedly, across multiple objects. Reversal. Symbolic thought was assumed to have switched on in Europe around 40,000 years ago. It was already running in Africa tens of thousands of years earlier. Unknown. We cannot read what the marks meant. Close angle. Somebody made a mark that was not for eating, hunting, or shelter. That is the beginning of everything we do now. Block 7. 1,000 feet into the dark Bruniquel Cave, France. Find. Circular structures built from 400 broken stalagmites, deep inside the cave. Dated 2016 to approximately 176,000 years. Context. No modern humans in Europe at that date. This was Neanderthal work. Reversal. It required controlled fire, coordinated labor, and a plan 1,000 feet from daylight, where nothing lives. Unknown. Nobody knows what the rings were for. There is no obvious practical function. Close angle. The oldest known construction by any of the ancient humans was built somewhere no one could have needed to go. Block 8. The drowned country Doggerland. North Sea. Find. Sedimentary ancient DNA from seafloor cores, harpoons and mammoth bone in fishing nets since the 1930s. Context. The land that joined Britain to Europe until roughly 7,000 years ago. Reversal. Long treated as a land bridge, a route. The evidence points to a forested, populated homeland. Unknown. The richest ancient human sites in northern Europe may be under 60 meters of water and effectively unreachable. Close angle. A country the size of a nation, with its whole population, is missing from the archaeological record because it is underwater. Block 9. The crossing. Nobody can explain Majed Bebe, Northern Australia. Find. Occupation dated to approximately 65,000 years ago, with ground-edge axes and processed ochre. Context. Even at the lowest sea levels, reaching Sahul required open water crossings out of sight of land. Reversal. Deliberate seafaring at this date by ancient humans, supposedly without complex technology. Unknown. No boat has ever been found and probably never will be. Everything used to build one rots. Close angle. Somebody looked at open water with no visible land beyond it and went anyway. Block 10. Footprints in a dry lake, White Sands, New Mexico. Find. Human footprints dated to roughly 23,000 to 21,000 years ago. Published 2021, reconfirmed 2023. Context. The traditional model had ancient humans entering the Americas around 13,000 to 16,000 years ago. Reversal. The footprints predate the opening of the ice-free corridor entirely. If they hold, people were already there during the glacial maximum. Unknown. The dating remains contested. Present the dispute honestly. It is more interesting than a clean answer. Close angle. Among the tracks are those of a woman carrying a child, setting the child down, and picking them up again. Block 11. The face we got wrong. Cheddar Man, England find. 2018. Genome sequencing of a 10,000-year-old skeleton from Gough's Cave. Context. The oldest near-complete skeleton found in Britain, excavated in 1903. Reversal. Every reconstruction for a century had assumed pale skin. The genome indicated dark skin with pale eyes. Pale skin in Europe arrived far later than assumed. Unknown. Pigmentation prediction from ancient DNA still carries real uncertainty. Say so. Close angle. For 100 years, we reconstructed ancient humans in the image of the people looking at them. Block 12. They are not gone. The genome of everyone watching. Find. The Neanderthal genome, 2010. And Denisovan sequencing, showing interbreeding with modern humans. Context. 1 to 4% Neanderthal ancestry outside Africa. Up to 5% of Denisovan in Melanesian and Aboriginal Australian populations. Reversal. Extinction was framed as replacement. It was partly absorption. The Tibetan high-altitude adaptation is inherited Denisovan DNA doing real work today. Unknown. How much of what we consider modern is inherited from ancient humans we call extinct? Close angle. This is the payoff for the whole video. Land it and stop. Never start a block cold. Each bridge closes the previous block and reopens curiosity for the next. One gives two. That finger bone was found in a cave in the coldest part of Siberia. The next discovery on this list came out of a cave on the other side of the world, in the heat of the Indonesian tropics. And it was not a fragment. It was almost a whole person. She just was not the size anyone expected. 2. 3. Florida showed us that ancient humans could take an unexpected form in isolation. This next site showed us something harder to accept, that they could behave in ways we had reserved entirely for ourselves. 3. 4. Rising star pushed on what ancient humans were capable of. This next discovery pushed on something even more basic, where our own species came from, and when. 4. 5. Jebel Irhoud moved the clock on ancient humans back by 100,000 years. This next one is about what we cannot see at all. An entire category of evidence that has been quietly rotting away for 500,000 years. 5. 6. Wood tells us what ancient humans could build. This next find tells us something much stranger. What they made when they were not building anything useful at all. 6. 7. Blombos is a cave in South Africa, and the people who left those marks were our own species. This next cave is in France. The date is more than twice as old, and the people who went into it were not us. 7. 8. Bruniquel is a place we can walk into. The next one is a place we cannot. An entire landscape where ancient humans lived for thousands of years that is now under 60 meters of cold water. 8. 9. Doggerland disappeared because the water came up. This next discovery is about ancient humans who saw the water and crossed it anyway, at a point in history when nobody thinks they should have been able to. 9. 10. Reaching Australia meant crossing open sea. Reaching the Americas was supposed to mean walking. And then somebody found footprints in a dry lake bed in New Mexico that do not fit the timeline at all. 10. 11. White Sands is about when ancient humans arrived somewhere. This next one is about something we should have found much easier to get right, what they actually looked like. 11. 12. Cheddar Man is a reminder that we keep reconstructing ancient humans out of our own assumptions, which brings us to the last discovery on this list, and the only one where the evidence is not in a cave, a lake bed, or a museum drawer. It is inside you. Closing right verbatim. 12 discoveries. A finger bone, a small woman on an island, a chamber at the end of a crawl, a hillside in Morocco, wooden spears, a scratched piece of ochre, rings of stalagmite in the dark, a drowned country, a sea crossing, footprints in a dry lake, a face we got wrong for a century, and a set of genes that never left. The story of ancient humans was never a straight line from primitive to modern. It was a crowded, branching, overlapping story with several kinds of people in it at once, most of the time. We are the only branch still standing, and for most of our history that was not the case. The ground has not finished with us. Every one of the discoveries on this list came out of the last 25 years, and most of the earth has never been dug. If you want more of this, subscribe. There is a great deal that has not been found yet.